and we are recording this class. So you will be able to find it, maybe in a week or so on YouTube. Just look up AARP YouTube. The class that we are doing today is stress and still skills to decrease it. And boy, we sure do need those skills right now because it is super, super stressful times. I don't know about anybody else, but it's really affecting me amongst, besides the world falling apart, personal stuff. So anyway, real quick, we do have the classes, few classes towards the end of the week. On Thursday, there's Boise Chinatown, there's Zoom Basics, and on Friday, there's Boise Birds. So if you'd like to go and try to sign up for some of those, that's gosh, we have about 30 classes this year or more. So it's going to be awesome. Okay. I would like to and thank Nicola Vitkovich. Did I say that right? For our class
Very
today.
close.
Okay, sorry. You could correct me.
All good.
She does live in Southern Idaho. She works as a mindset strategist and educates her clients on how their mind works. She teaches how to make real changes in the way they think and behave. Nicola is a certified faster EFT Utopics Level 5 practitioner and teacher in training. She also holds numerous certifications in hypnotherapy, modern energy tapping, which I'm really excited to hear more about, tiny habits coaching, and is also a Jack Canfield Success Principles trainer. One thing about questions I do want to bring up, she will be answering some questions. If you want to put them in the chat, I will be monitoring them, and then after segments, we'll go ahead and ask the questions so we could try to keep it on topic as much as possible. And we could, if you'd like, Nicola, I could put your the fasterchanges.com in the chat for everybody.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, everybody, welcome Nicola, and you go ahead and you can start your presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start by sharing my screen. There we go. Everybody can see Faster Changes. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a story about a little girl. When she was 3 years old, she started having panic attacks. And that might seem like a young age to start having panic attacks, but they stayed with her for her whole life. And as she's growing up, she was very, very insecure. Her parents would fight a lot. They had a lot of stress too. And their fights were huge, and they would start at night, and there was usually a lot of noise. And so she was really kind of convinced that it was somehow her fault, that she did something wrong and she was going to get in trouble. And those feelings, they kind of persisted as she grew up. And her parents' problems would influence her a lot. When she was 13, she decided to try out for the drill team. She really wanted to do something, to be something. And that was her first attempt. That didn't work out very well. She didn't make the drill team. And then when she went home that day, her mom gave her a card, which didn't seem too out of the ordinary, but she didn't make the drill team. She opened the card, and it was one of those cards that you give when someone achieves something, like, congratulations, you did it. But like I said, her parents, they had problems. And that card, on the front of the card, it was crossed out. And on the inside of the card, it said, I knew you'd fail. And that's what her mom gave her. So she started to learn that there was nothing she could do that would be good enough in this world. So what I'm going to teach you today would have really helped her a lot. It would have helped her parents too. So I'm excited to share these things with you. Now, there we go. It's always fun trying to get the slides to work the first time. So welcome, everybody. I know that things are stressful right now, and I am really excited to share with you simple skills that you can use to change and address your stress. They work. I use them every day. And I have been working with learning these skills for a long time. Now, we've covered a little bit of my experience, but I'm a level 4 fast EFT practitioner. This is a thinking system that helps people address stress. I am also a certified hypnotherapist. So I really know a lot about how the mind works and how we create our problems. I'm also a Utaptics level 5 teacher in training, Jack Canfield Success Principles coach, and a Tiny Habits coach. That's the newest training I've added, and you are all going to learn some tiny habits today. Because not only am I going to teach you behaviors that'll help you address your stress, I'm also going to give you options on how you can immediately start using them in your life with these tiny habits. So I don't want you to just leave with some knowledge that you don't use, which I end up calling shelf knowledge. I want you to put it into practice and start using these skills today. All right, so first, what is stress? Right? Everyone has their own meaning for what stress is. And most of you know that stress is the leading cause of illness. Long-term stress can increase your risk of all kinds of health conditions like cancer, high blood pressure, heart attacks, stroke, you name it. So reducing your stress is really important. Now, where does it come from though? So stress is our body reacting to perception. And that might not sound like much at first thought. So I'm going to go into a little bit about what perception is. Perception begins at birth for us, and it continues all the way through until we die. We are constantly creating perception, and it comes from our experiences. So that little girl I was talking about earlier, her perception was formed by these family dynamics, the problems, the fights, the screaming, and all the fear and insecurity that she had. And stress, as I said, is your body just reacting to that perception that you've formed of the world. Because what you think, you feel. And it's pretty powerful in most of us. Now, perception is also projection, and that means we're projecting out what we hold inside of us out on the world around us. So all of our experiences color how we see the world. We do not react to what is happening in the present moment based on what's happening in the present moment. Your mind needs to go back to all your experiences to create an association on how you think and feel about these things. So that's what I call having a pattern match or using imprints. All our experiences become imprints inside of us. And it's kind of like if you think about a Rolodex or a file folder or a big file cabinet, every time something happens in the present moment, your mind is going to go back to all these files and kind of look for, okay, what matches this? What's like this? How am I supposed to respond to this? So the mind uses its imprints, and it tells you how to think, feel, and how to respond to everything. And it does it out of your conscious awareness in an instant. So learning how to work with that system gives you a lot more freedom. There is continually so much stimulus coming at us, and your mind, it has to organize that information in some way. So it does it in 3 different ways. It will either generalize that information coming in and say, well, this is like this. And I'll use the example of learning to open a door. At some point, we learn how to use a doorknob. Okay, we know that that opens a door. But you go out in the world and you're going to notice that not all doors have doorknobs. Some have a bar that you push, some have a lever. There's different ways of opening doors, yet your mind is able to generalize that learning, and you can open doors no matter what they look like. You just are able to figure it out because your mind has generalized that information. There's other places where we do this. Say you see the look on somebody's face. You interpret it to mean something else based on your experiences, but it might not necessarily mean that. Now, we also distort the information coming in. And what that means is, based on our perception, based on what we believe to be true about ourselves, the world, and our life, we will distort information to match those beliefs. And that's not a bad thing if you believe you're a pretty amazing person. But if you believe that the world is a dangerous place, or that you're not good enough, or that nothing you do works out, that kind of distortion isn't so useful. Now, that also your mind can completely delete information. Things that come to you, it can just completely exclude it from your conscious awareness because it contradicts your belief about yourself and about the world. Okay? There's a part of the brain that helps this happen. It's called the reticular activating system. And the most common way that this is described is when you're going to go buy a new car, you're excited about that new car, and then next time you get on the road, that's all you see, is suddenly everyone has that car. It's because your reticular activating system has now filtered out information and has this showing up for you because that's what seems important. All right. So that's a little bit about stress. Stress is your body reacting to perception, and perception is learned. And we project it out on the world as we respond to what's happening. Another important thing about that is that you can change your perception, and the skills that I'm teaching you today will help you. So these are the things that you are going to be learning today. Set tapping. That stands for Simple Energy Techniques Tapping. We're also going to go over power poses. You're going to learn some faster EFT tapping for how you want to feel. I'm going to teach you an exercise called open focus. It's also known as peripheral vision. Then we're going to go over some breathing exercises that'll help stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. When we're stressed, we're in the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is where we come back into a rest and digest state so that we can heal. And the bonus is you're going to get some tiny habits that will help you add what you're learning into your daily life so that you can take these skills and apply them in a simple way. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about tapping. A brief history of tapping. Dr. Roger Callahan created the first tapping modality. It was called thought field therapy. It's in the 70s, I believe. And it was a more complicated system. It had a bunch of different algorithms or ways that you would tap for different issues. If you had this issue, you would tap on these points. If you had another issue, you would tap on different points. So it was basically a bunch of recipes or formulas for specific issues. One of his students was an engineer named Gary Craig. And what he did was he took the most common tapping points and he created emotional freedom technique and just taught people, well, if you just tap on all these points all the time, we could clean up just pretty much anything that comes up. And from there, there were more people that created different types of tapping approaches. So today you're going to learn set tapping by Steve Wells and Dr. David Lake there in Australia. I've been using this one since 2016. What they discovered is that people, their clients, people who worked with them, the more they tapped, the better they got. So instead of doing individual tapping rounds, which is what EFT and the TFT taught, they just had people tap continuously for the whole duration of working with them. And they found that people changed more. Okay. Another one is Faster EFT Eutaptics. This is created by Robert Smith, and he's in Oklahoma. And for him, it's not so much about the tapping, it's more a thinking system, but it does use tapping, and it's been very impactful for me. And he started that in the late 90s. And I'm not sure exactly what year set tapping came to pass. And then there's also modern energy tapping by Sylvia Hartman, and she's in the UK. There's a lot of different people that teach tapping. It is an incredible tool that you can use to really release stress easily. So these are some of the tapping points. There's right in the center of the forehead, there's a third eye point. Right at the beginning of your eyebrows, that's the bladder. The side of the eye is the gallbladder. And if your gallbladder's been removed, don't worry, it still works. Wherever your gallbladder is, it'll relax too. Then under your eyes is the stomach meridian. You've got the governing vessel just under the nose. Under the lip is the central vessel or the conception vessel. There's the kidneys, and there's also a point under the arm. There's some other points, but for what I'm going to teach you today, we're going to use these main ones. And then there's also on each finger, on the fingernail, there's points too. Okay. And I'll go more into what the tapping points are. This is just a general diagram for you. When we get to tapping, you're going to see exactly where you tap. We're going to be doing the ones on the fingers first. Okay. So how does tapping work? Tapping uses the energy meridians of the body. So if you've ever had acupuncture or you know how acupuncture works, it's using that same system. Energy meridians are little super highways that run throughout the body, and they correspond with different organs. So when you're stressed and your perception is telling you that something is not good and you use tapping, it alters your perception because the body begins to relax, the organs begin to relax, and that allows you to change your perception. Okay, it changes how you feel and how you think. It's also a relaxation process that allows you to be in the present moment. When you're tapping, you kind of become aware that you're doing this tapping thing, and it brings you in the present moment. Because fear and anxiety are when we're living in the past or in the future, and we're not in the present moment. We're thinking of some bad thing we don't want to have happen, or we're thinking of some bad thing that has happened that we don't want to have happen again. Either way, you've left the present moment and you're creating stress in your body because your mind does not know the difference between an actual event or a vividly imagined event. So when you use tapping, it allows your unconscious mind to come back to the present moment, to feel calm and basically say, okay, that thing's not happening. I'm actually okay right here, right now. And it allows you to once again change that perception of what was stressing you. All right. Now, if anyone has questions, it's fine to ask them as we go. All right. So we're going to learn the first one. Set tapping. As I mentioned, this was created by Dr. David Lake and Steve Wells. They call this energy toning also. Now, I'm going to show you some finger points where you can tap on your fingers. It'll be a little better than the diagram from before. So this is the thumb point. Now, when I do this set tapping, I like to use the finger points. So you would tap on that bottom inside portion of your thumb where the index finger is showing. I usually use 2 fingers to do the tapping. Okay. So if you want to start tapping, that would be a good idea because you'll get a felt sense of this technique working. So you're not just going to tap on the thumb though, you're also going to tap on the finger points. So as you'll see, it's just on the bottom inside of, they're showing you the middle finger, but it's the same for all the fingers, index, middle, ring, and the baby finger. Okay. There's also a karate chop point that you can tap on. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more about this, but notice those points. And if you want to start tapping, you can start because it will immediately begin working. Now, as I said, this is also called energy toning. What it does is it works with your nervous system, allowing it to become more resilient And over time, it will actually change how you respond to stress. Now with set tapping, you can use any of the tapping points. It doesn't have to be the fingers. I prefer to use the fingers for this technique because I'm usually doing it when I'm doing other things. So how much do you do of this one? I recommend that everyone does this for an hour a day, but you don't have to sit there and do it for an hour all at once. This is meant to be used in 5 or 10-minute increments. You just do a little bit of tapping, and then you can move on to doing something else. I like to do this if I'm on the phone. I'm very often doing this in webinars. I'm showing you that I'm doing it here. However, very often when I'm working with clients or doing other webinars, I just have my hands down and nobody knows I'm doing it, but it's just how I manage my own energy. Now, there's 2 different signs that you'll have that it's working. So once you start doing this, once you start doing the tapping, it's very natural to notice that you take a deeper breath. You start to sigh. And that is the very first sign from your nervous system that you're already releasing stress. You might even yawn. And there's a message in the chat and it says, does tapping help with sleep issues like insomnia? And actually, yes, it does. This particular one, the finger tapping that I'm showing, the set tapping, you can do with one hand. And I very often use this to help me get to sleep at night. It works wonderfully. It's very relaxing and it's simple to do while you're laying in bed. It's just one hand. It's not very much of a disturbance. It's just soothing. So it will work really well for helping with insomnia, helping you release stress so that you can actually get to sleep at night. Okay, so one of the signs that it's working, as I said, is that you might start to sigh. You might notice some relaxation. You might notice a sensation of energy moving through the body. Another sign that it's working, and this will come a couple weeks into it. So say you start doing this. I started out doing it for 20 minutes a day at first, but now I'm up to an hour. You could just start with it for an hour if you want. Another sign is that you're going to notice your response to future stress. I call this building a bigger container for stress. When we're acutely stressed and we've been acutely stressed for a while, it doesn't take much to push us over the edge. The littlest thing can have us in overload. And that's what I would call having about like a thimbleful of space before you're completely stressed. After you've been using set tapping for a couple of weeks, you're going to notice that you have what I call a bigger container for stress. So if it took a thimble for you to be overwhelmed with stress, now it's going to take about a cup. And then as you continue using this on a daily basis, that cup will become like a quart jar, and then it becomes like a bucket. It really is very effective at changing how you respond to stress by progressively helping your nervous system, toning your energy system. Okay. So once again, let me show you where those tapping points are, because I know it's probably not easy to see me on a little screen. So if you're looking at the back of your hand, it's just that bottom inside corner of your thumbnail. You're kind of on the skin and on the nail. You can tap with 1 finger, 2 fingers, or you can use the index finger of the same hand. Okay, this one-handed approach. That's if you're going to use the hand points or the finger points. The other tapping points that I showed you earlier, you can use any of them. There's even a point on the top of the head. So there's a lot of options. It's just a matter of finding where you like to tap. I like the hands, so I use them a lot. So that's the thumb. And once again, this is where you would tap on the finger. So again, when you look at the back of your hand, it's the bottom inside corner of your fingernail. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be super precise. You don't have to worry that you're going to miss the spot and not get a benefit. Just being in that general area works. Okay. Okay, so that is set tapping. Just to recap, I recommend you do this for an hour a day in 5 to 10 minute increments. It's great if you're on the phone, you can do tapping. You can do this when you're watching a TV show at night, or if you watch a movie, if you're stopped at a light, when you're driving somewhere. I do this when I walk as well. It's a really good time to create a bit of relaxation when walking. Okay. The next is a power pose. Now, I did one of these before giving this talk today. This is one of the ways that I take really good control of my state or my energy system inside. All of our mental, emotional states are linked to a posture, a particular body posture. And it takes 2 minutes to create a very, very positive chemical change inside the body. I mean, it literally changes your hormones. Within 2 minutes of being in a power pose, you will increase your testosterone from baseline by 20%, and you will decrease your cortisol 25%. That's significant, and it only takes 2 minutes. And what happens when we do this is that we're more assertive, we're more confident, and we're more comfortable. It's a really powerful technique to use to feel better about yourself and to create a positive hormonal shift. Now, you might be wondering what a power pose is. And there we go. So the standard Wonder Woman or Superman is a power pose. And basically, to sum it up, is you get big. You take up some space. Yeah, so it could be the arms overhead, could be hands on hips, and you do this for 2 minutes. And as I said, you increase your testosterone by 20% and you decrease cortisol, the stress hormone, by 25% in 2 minutes. It's so simple, and yet it creates a very powerful shift. And the mind and body is a continuous feedback loop. The mind informs the body and the body informs the mind. So you take this power pose and you use your body to inform your mind that you are confident and you are comfortable and you are assertive. And it really makes a difference. And now you can add even more power to your power pose. These are some things that I do. I do them with music, something uplifting. I will sing out loud when I do them sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And I will also visualize things happening the way I want them to happen, whatever that means. You know, so let's use today as an example. I did my power pose before I got on the call, and I visualized everything going well. The slides worked fine. Everything was good. So this is how I create the intention before I do things, and I address, instead of sitting there being nervous, I'm doing a power pose and I'm using tapping and I'm visualizing how I want things to go. So I'm able to show up confidently and comfortably. So think of where in your life you could use a power pose to feel better about yourself, about your day, or just feel good in general. Now, this is the kind of power pose we usually use and don't realize it. Most of us are sitting rounded over, looking at a device or sitting at a computer. And the problem is, it actually decreases your testosterone and increases your cortisol. So from baseline, your testosterone will drop down 10%. Your cortisol will go up 15% just from sitting in a slumped posture, being in what's called a low power pose. And that makes you highly stress reactive. So something as simple as changing your posture and taking up some space, getting big, creates a very powerful shift in your body. Low power pose. All right, so now we're going to move on to another tapping modality. This one is created by Robert Smith. It's known as eutaptic spastic EFT. And I've worked a lot with clients over the years, and clients will typically come to me with a problem that they want to change. And very often they'll come to me super stressed and they want to just get back to feeling normal again. And I call that remedial change. You come in, you're feeling your worst, and you just want to get back to feeling normal. Now, there's also something called generative change, and that's where you're normal, but you want to just increase yourself. You want to become either more assertive or more confident or feel better about yourself, so that you're creating a generative change. So I focus on both. This tapping, the power of instead, which is what I call tapping 4, is you go from a stressed state. So you could say, how stressed am I right now? Or what is it I'm feeling? And then you ask yourself, how do I want to feel instead? And then once you know what you want to feel instead, there's a way to tap and release anything that isn't that feeling that you want. So we're going to focus on calm, because I think calm is a really nice antidote for stress. I don't know about you, but I think that's a good one. And I'm going to show you how that we're going to do it. Now, the tapping points we're going to use are a little different. So with set tapping, I showed you the finger tapping points. And for this tapping, we're going to be using the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the eye, and then the collarbone. And then there's also going to be something that we do at the very end to conclude a tapping round that's called a peace anchor, and you simply squeeze your wrist and then take a deep breath. So those are the points, and I'm going to lead you through this. So first part of it, and we're going to be tapping for feeling calm. We ask an aiming question. Now, how this works best is once I ask the aiming question, you're going to get a number and it's just going to pop into your mind. So just trust the first thought and make it up. If you're not sure, just make it up, because your unconscious mind always guesses right. Okay, so the aiming question is 0, which means not at all, to 10, which means totally calm. How calm am I feeling now? So 0 to 10, how calm am I feeling now? Okay, so when I ask that, for me, I get an answer of an 8. So it's not a 10, there's room for improvement. Notice where you are. Okay, does anyone want to share where they are with that from 0 to 10? You share it in the chat if you want. 5? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is what we do. And okay, thank you, Marie. Good. So we have someone at a 5 and we have someone at almost a 10, which is really good. So this is how you tap. You're going to start tapping right at that beginner eyebrow point. Just notice the number you had, and you can read the screen, or you can just repeat after me and say, I release and let go of anything in me that isn't feeling calm now. Simple. Side of the eye, I let it go. Under the eye, I let it all go. And then on the collarbone, I give myself permission to feel calm now. And then you're going to squeeze your wrist, take a nice deep breath in, relax it out, and say peace. And then we just check it again. You say 0 to 10, how calm am I feeling now? And for me, that's moved up to a 10 immediately. Sometimes it changes quickly. Sometimes it's very slow. Nancy, where is it for you now? So we moved up to a 7. Okay, very good. Did anybody else notice a change with that? Now I can't see everybody, so, and most of you don't have your cameras on anyway, but we're going to do it again. So you're going to 0 to 10, how calm am I feeling now? You notice what it is, and then tap. So once again, tap with me. I release and let go of anything in me that isn't feeling calm. Side of the eye, I let it go. Under the eye, I let it all go. And then collarbone. I give myself permission to feel calm. And then squeeze your wrist. Nice deep breath in. And relax it out. And say peace. Okay, great. All right. So who noticed that? How does that feel? Okay, Gypsy, that's a great question. You don't necessarily have to tap if that's uncomfortable, and you can use the other side of your face, but what you can do is you can just touch. It doesn't have to be percussive, and it can be very gentle. It doesn't matter which side of your face, so you can switch sides. Tapping is bilateral, so if you're left-handed or right-handed, you can use that. And if it doesn't feel good on the face points, you could use the finger points instead and do the same exact process, tapping on the finger points. Okay? So it's quite versatile. That's a great question. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. All right, so just to review, these were the tapping points we did use. Eyebrow, side of eye, under eye, collarbone. And then there was a peace anchor. Okay, so there's going to be a handout that also reminds you how to do these things. All right, so here's the next one. Peripheral vision. And yes, that is just a black dot on your screen. So how peripheral vision works is you're going to just look at that black dot. And as you're looking at the black dot, without moving your eyes, bring your attention to your peripheral vision. So keep your eyes trained on the black dot. Notice the sides of the room that you're in, the walls. Perhaps you can notice the ceiling. And I can't notice the floor because there's my desk in the way, but maybe you can notice your desk. As you're focusing on that black dot, noticing all the space around you, I want you to notice how quiet your mind has become. Because when you bring your attention to the space around you, the internal dialogue just takes a breather. So this is super simple, and it's fantastic for when you have a lot of mental chatter happening inside you. It'll help you take a complete pause. And once again, this brings you right back into a rest and digest state. And that's really important for coming out of that sympathetic nervous system where you're highly stress reactive. I practice this one every day. You can do this when you're stopped at a light, just looking at a traffic light. If you're walking behind someone, you can just do it looking at the back of someone's head. You can do it in Zoom rooms, looking at a person on the screen. You can stop somewhere in the house if you have a picture on the wall and just do it with that. It's really simple to practice, but it just takes you out of whatever it was that you were doing that caused stress. And I'm going to get into actually stacking these techniques together so that you can combine them. But this one's really simple. Did everyone try that? Okay, good. Did you notice how quiet everything got in your mind? Good. Okay. So now let's talk about breathing techniques for stress relief. There's 3 types of breathing that I teach my clients. One is box breathing, and it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. We're going to use a 4 count, And everyone can do it with me, but what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in for 4. You're going to hold for 4. You're going to exhale for 4. And then you're going to hold for 4 again before you resume. So everyone, you can start with me. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. And once again, hold for 4. And then you would just repeat this. It's very simple, but like the other skills that I've taught you today, part of it, they're mindfulness based. You become present and in the present moment. It takes you out of how you were producing stress inside of you. And that's an important thing, because stress doesn't happen to us. It is something that we're creating inside based on our perception. So these tools are all ways that you can intervene in the process and do something different, something that benefits your body. So box breathing, I did that before this call as well. I set a timer for 5 minutes and I just did box breathing. And at the end, I'm very relaxed. I do it every morning before I meditate because my body is very, very relaxed afterwards. If holding for 4, a count of 4 seems like too much, it could be a count of 3 as well. You don't have to start at 4. Box breathing is something that the Navy SEALs use. Okay, it is extremely powerful for managing stress. This will also change your relationship with future stress if you do it on a daily basis, just like the set tapping. It helps you become more resilient and have that better container for stress, as I call it. Okay. Now, 4-7 or 7-11 breathing is a little bit different. This works with the vagus nerve to let the body know that you are safe, to bring you back into a rest and digest state. So with 4-7 breathing, you're going to inhale for a count of 4. No hold, you just exhale for a count of 7. That again brings you into the rest and digest state of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's very, very good for when people are in a lot of pain, coming out of that cycle of pain and that focus on what hurts. This breathing is really a powerful intervention, whether it's emotional or physical pain. 7-11 is very similar. You inhale for 7, exhale for 11. Personally, I do the 4-7 more frequently. That's more comfortable for me. Both are effective. It's the elongated exhalation that really brings you into that parasympathetic nervous system, back into a rest and digest state. Okay. Now here, and we can see if there's any other questions. Okay, looks like not yet. Now I want to talk a little bit about stacking the techniques. Okay, they all work wonderful, but what happens if you combine them? I find it even more relaxing. So the first thing I shared with you today was set tapping. And when I first started using it, what I would do is I would set a timer for 20 minutes and I would just sit and I would do my tapping and I would use all the tapping points and I would pair it with a breathing technique. So I would just inhale for 4 and exhale for 7. And then I'd switch and I'd do it on the next tapping point. Like I said, you can use it. There's all kinds of tapping points. And if you just do the breathing exercise while tapping and then move to the next one. And like I said, if you don't like the percussive nature of the tapping, it can be just press and hold. Tapping doesn't need to be so literal. It doesn't have to be tapping. If you just press and hold while doing that breathing technique, you're going to create a really powerful relaxation state, really good for healing. So that's one way. You can add the breathing to the power pose as well. That works really well. Another way that when I mentioned singing with the power pose, you get in the power pose and you add music. And singing is actually, because of how singing works, it's like doing this 4-7 or 7-11 breathing, because you inhale and then the singing is like a really protracted exhalation. It also creates a positive vibration in the body. So pairing those together, as silly as it might sound, is really powerfully relaxing. Okay. Now, a few moments ago, when we were tapping for feeling calm, I showed you the peace anchor. And this is another place where I stack techniques. Here, I will inhale for 4. And then I'll exhale for 7. And that's kind of the official end to that round of tapping for how you want to feel. Okay. Good. And we did the peripheral vision, we did the breathing. So this might be a good place for questions if anyone has them, or I can review some of the techniques, like particularly the tapping 4 one, but questions would be really useful too. And Gypsy, that's a great, yes, I have used the happy song for power poses many, many, many times. It is a fantastic song for a power pose. It is extremely uplifting.
I have a question. When you're doing the piece, are you actually like putting pressure on the inside, or are you just holding it?
It's just like a gentle hug. It's not a lot of pressure at all. Yeah,
Okay.
just a hug.
Because on the picture, it almost.
There's actually meridians that run through the wrist. So you're accessing all the meridians for the hand by doing that.
Okay.
Yep.
And that breathing, it reminds me a little bit of Kundalini yoga. Has some breathing stuff to it, and it's similar to some of the holding techniques.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yoga has a lot of nice, really nice breathing techniques in it, and they all have such wonderful benefit. Good. There's a handout, and the handout on it has, I think I can share. Did everyone get the handout, or are they getting it after?
They're going to get it after, after class.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then show the handout, because that's where the tiny habits are. Oh, and there was a question about panic attacks. Actually, I have something I can show you. I had it just in case anybody asked about anxiety. So top of the head point right here that I mentioned before, that's another tapping point. When you tap on the top of the head for 3 minutes, 3 times a day, it helps get rid of that anxiety that leads to panic attacks. And panic attacks typically don't, I had them for many years. Panic attacks typically don't just happen. They're the culmination of a stress that's been building. And usually if you can start noticing it happening, you can do these things to intervene so it doesn't get to that point. Okay. And when you do this 3 minutes, 3 times a day, your arm gets really tired. So it's okay to switch arms. It still works. Okay. So this one is huge. I've shared this with many clients who suffer from anxiety, and it has made a huge difference for them. And it's wonderful. It's a great thing. I sometimes do this just because it feels good. Okay. It's called the upper shortcut, actually. So it actually works all the tapping meridians in the head. And when you grab the wrist, that's the lower shortcut, and it works all the meridians in the hands. So something that you don't necessarily need to know about, but there you have it. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the handout, which I did have open. There it is. Good. Because we're going to go into the tiny habits so that you can start to utilize what I've shown you today. Okay, so these are the things that we went over. Okay, you can see the stress and the skills to change it document now, right?
Yes, yes, we see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so there's a video that'll review the finger tapping that I showed you. And we went over peripheral vision. We did tapping 4. There's a link to videos for this as well. I have a 7-day, there's 7 days of free videos on tapping for different things. We went over breathing techniques and power poses. Now, it's really great to learn these, but how do you make them fit into your life? How do you start implementing them? And one of the best things I've learned of late is these tiny habits, because what I've learned is that in order to create a habit, what you really need is for a behavior to meet an anchor, right? And this is how we create a nice recipe for it. You take an existing habit that you have and you add a new behavior to it, and that makes it effortless. So this one is called the Maui Habit. It's obviously not related to the first one. After I wake up in the morning and put my feet on the floor, I will say today is going to be a great day. BJ Fogg, the creator of Tiny Habits, he calls this the Maui Habit. And I've been doing it for the past year, and it really does make a difference. It's something so silly, but when you feel better, you're less stressed. So that's why I put it here. It's just a really great thing. So it's that simple. When you wake up in the morning and your feet hit the floor, you say, today is going to be a great day. So, and these are other ones. After I put my toothbrush down in the morning, I will do 1 round of tapping for how I want to feel today. So that's where you say, you know, you can do calm or whatever state that you want to feel. 0 to 10, how calm am I feeling now? And then you tap, squeeze your wrist, peace, and then you go on about your day. Now, if you want to do more and you want to get that up to a 10, you certainly can do more. But this will get you started. We just want to get the behaviors into the day so that you start using them. Because here's the thing. This is the way I look at it. If you don't use these techniques daily, even when you're not feeling bad, you're not going to remember them when you're feeling bad. So start using them in little increments each day. And then when your stress starts to amp up, you're going to have tools that you can rely on because you've been using them regularly. Okay, so here's another one. After I notice I'm worrying about something, I will stop and assume a power pose for 15 seconds. Now, it takes 2 minutes to get the full benefits of a power pose, but the point of a tiny habit is for you to start getting these behaviors in your day, in your routine. You can always grow them. 15 minutes would be the minimum. If you want to do 2 minutes, great. But just getting out of the worry posture and into a power pose posture makes all the difference. Okay. After I open my email application, I will focus on a point on a wall and do 15 seconds of peripheral vision. And so these are just options to get you thinking of where this might fit into your day. After I sit down at my desk, I will do 1 round of a breathing exercise that I like. So you could choose box breathing, 7-11 or 4-7. I have this is one of the ones I do every day. As soon as I sit at my desk and put in my password, I do a round of box breathing. And it just grounds me before I get to work. Here's another one. After I flush the toilet, I will do 1 round of tapping for how I want to feel. So that's 0 to 10. How confident am I feeling now? And then you do that tapping process that I shared. And then you move on. Okay, they can fit seamlessly into your day. After I sit down to watch TV, I will do 30 seconds of set tapping. After I pick up the phone, I will do 30 seconds of set tapping. And like I said, you can always do more. The point of this is to get started so you use the techniques so that they're there and available when you need them the most. Another one is after my head hits the pillow at night, I will do 1 round of the breathing exercise of my choice. So you could do your box breathing, 7-11 or 4-7. And it's easy to know how relaxing that is. You know, when you go to sleep, it's good to just put yourself into that relaxed state. It doesn't take much time at all. After I put my toothbrush down at night, I will stop and assume a power pose for 15 seconds. Okay. Those sound pretty easy, right? Just give you ways to immediately start applying these techniques. And the other part of your handout is what I call the mood creator. So this is for the tapping 4 process that I taught you earlier, and I could review it. What I do at the beginning of the month is I print this out, and then in each of these, I pick a color for each of these boxes. Doesn't matter what color, but I like to use colors. And then I write 6 different things that I want to feel more of in the month. Okay, so could be confident, could be calm, it could be flexible, it could be abundant. I just pick 6, and then I write them out, and those are the ones I focus for in the month. And each day I pick one, and I do that tapping 4 process where I say 0 to 10, how calm am I feeling now? And I will work until I get it to a 10. And then I'll color in which one I did for the day, so that if this is red and it's calm, I'd color in the one with that. And I track the progress on what I do. And I've noticed some really great changes, you know, especially at the beginning of the month when I'm working on something. Normally it might start out on a 2, you know, it's not very high, but at the end of the month, if I'm still working on that one, I'm usually starting out at an 8. So I know that I've changed what I call my baseline for that mood or that emotion. I've started clearing out a lot of the things that were in the way for me feeling more of that positive state. So and Gypsy, that's a normal thing. So Gypsy said that she's yawning, and that is a very normal response to tapping. It happens to everybody. I've gotten used to it, so it's a good feeling. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I'd like to open it up for questions, or if anyone would like me to review anything so that you're really clear on how to do it for yourself. Probably can stop the share. Everybody's so quiet.
Well, I know for me, I wish I knew, or I knew some about the tapping, but I hadn't actually practiced it. But yeah, I do have anxiety issues, and this would have been really helpful. I like the tiny habits because sometimes, you know, when you're in that anxiety mode, you get pretty, it's overwhelming when you start having an attack. And,
Yeah.
you know, and to think about, but if you did, you know, those tiny habits on a day, maybe that will prevent, you know, those kind of attacks.
It makes a very big difference. So let me bring up what happened to that little girl, right? So that little girl that had those panic attacks and those anxiety attacks, that little girl is me. And in 2010, I found tapping, and it was the Ortners and the World Tapping Summit. And I started learning these techniques and using them. And I do not have panic attacks or anxiety attacks anymore. You know, I have completely changed how I interact with stress. It takes a lot for me to become stressed at all anymore. I can do things that I never would have imagined doing. And there was a year in my life when I was completely agoraphobic. I couldn't even leave the house. And I mean, for me to be able to give a webinar is completely amazing. So yeah, these skills work. So there's a question in the chat: for set tapping on fingers, do you stay on one finger for the duration or switch and do all fingers in one session? Yes, I will rotate, and I'll just tap and then switch fingers. I'm constantly rotating the tapping points. Yep. So that's a great question. And it doesn't have to be the fingers. Like I said, you can tap on any tapping points. It can just be continuous tapping anywhere. And sometimes I use all of them. Okay. So Gypsy, question.
Yeah, is it this part, if this is my hand, is it this part of the thumb and this part of the finger? This?
On the thumb, it's the other part of the nail, the other side, and on the finger, that was the correct point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cute.
So if you're looking at the back of your hand, it's the bottom inside portion of the fingernail. So the part that's closer to your midline and the bottom corner. Yeah, that's it. So you can reach across and do that or tap on it that way.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Should have had a manicure before
oh,
class.
you're very welcome. I didn't have one either. That's okay. So peripheral vision, when focusing on this, I get double. No, it doesn't. I get double vision as well. So yeah, it doesn't. And that's okay. You'll pop in and out of clarity on the point, but mostly we're not doing it for a terribly long time. It's just to bring your awareness to the basically outside so that the mind chatter gets quiet. You're just quieting the mind and giving yourself some space to choose a new behavior or a new activity. So does everyone feel like they can use these techniques now? Did anyone need anything reviewed so that you can use them?
I guess since nobody else is talking, I was kind of wondering when you started telling that story, that's pretty young to start having panic attacks. But yeah, but I was in my late teens, so I can kind of relate a lot to that. Because you think you're dying. But no, this has been very helpful to me personally. I'm a little bit familiar with the tapping. But yeah, this is great. Thank you for all those tips. I really
It's
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure.
Yeah, you know,
It's absolutely my pleasure.
years of counseling and talking, and you know, this is the kind of stuff that I think, you know, should be mandatory when you go to counseling for really almost anything, because it's helpful.
Yep.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's important to have skills, right? That you can use for yourself, so you don't always have to go to someone to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Good.
does anybody else are you done with your presentation?
Yeah, that was everything. So I thought there'd be more questions, so I guess it went faster than intended. But
Hey, is there anybody? I'm going to put your website in the chat.
thank you.
www.fasterchanges.com. If anybody would like
Thank you,
to,
Francoise.
if anybody would like to look at her website, Nicola's website, and we appreciate all the information. This was pretty amazing to me. So yeah, thank you so much.
Good.
And
It's
thank
my
you.
pleasure. So remember, with anxiety, top of the head 3 times a day for 3 minutes, okay?
I'm gonna start that.
Good.
Okay.
Good, good, good.
It's like, Joan, did you have a comment? No.
Thank you, Lupe. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Gypsy. They have a question on how they're going to get the handout.
Yeah, you'll be getting the handout shortly after this class. Will be emailed to you.
That is
for
correct. Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
How you signed up for the class, it will be emailed to that email address. There's a question, if you're just tapping on your fingers or a certain spot, is there a certain amount of taps?
It really doesn't matter. And like I said, you could press and hold or massage. Conventionally, they say in emotional freedom technique, they'll say 5 to 7 taps per spot, but you honestly don't need to count it. You don't need to pay that much attention to it. When you feel like switching, you switch. I know sometimes I get distracted and I'll realize I've been tapping on the same spot for a pretty long time. It's okay. You can just switch whenever you think of it. Okay.
So, and should you switch hands also?
I do. Yep. There's no shoulds with it. You could use either side. And sometimes I do both hands at the same time.
Oh,
That's fine. You can tap both points at the same time. Or you could just use one. It's really flexible, but it works if you work it. So use the tool, but don't worry about whether it's 1 hand, 2 hands, how many times. It's much more flexible than that. So
I will. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's my pleasure. I love teaching this stuff. So,
You do a great job. So we appreciate it.
oh, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. That was great.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next class.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.